Stop wasting your mornings on machines that take you nowhere because the most powerful thing you can do for your aging body is something you already know but have been seriously underestimating. It costs nothing, requires no equipment, and you can begin today regardless of your age or how long it has been since you last exercised. I am talking about walking, just simple, natural walking, one step after another. And before you dismiss this as something too basic, there is something important you need to understand. Most doctors, and I include myself in this, have not fully explained what this simple habit actually does inside your body. We are not just talking about light movement or burning calories. We are talking about deep changes happening at the level of your cells, your blood vessels, your brain chemistry, and even your DNA activity. After 60, walking stops being just exercise. It becomes one of the most powerful biological interventions available to you. I am Dr. William Lee, and in this video, I am going to walk you through 6 major effects that happen inside your body when you walk every day. These are ranked from impressive benefits to life changing biological transformations. And I want to be clear right from the start, the final point on this list is something that even many heart specialists are not emphasizing enough. Even though it may determine how well you age after 65, a large study published in 2023 by researchers at the University of Sydney followed more than 78,000 adults and discovered something very significant. People who walked around 9,800 steps per day had a 51% lower risk of dying from cardiovascular disease and about a 30% lower risk of developing dementia. Those numbers alone are powerful, but they are not the full story. What truly matters is not just how many steps people took, but how consistently they did it. Individuals who walked every single day, even if their distance was modest, showed better long term health outcomes than those who walked more on some days but skipped others. The body responds strongly to routine, it listens to daily signals, and after 60, that consistency becomes a deciding factor between healthy aging and gradual physical decline. All of the research mentioned in this video is available in the description if you want to explore it further. Now, I want to ask you something directly because your answer matters more than you think. I read every comment on this channel. How old are you right now? And what is the biggest physical reason stopping you from walking more regularly? Tell me your age, your city, and your situation. You might think it is just a comment, but many people here have said that reading someone else's story who is in the same age group completely changed how they see their own health. Now, let's begin the breakdown. Number 6 is where everything starts, and it is about what walking does to your blood sugar within just the first 30 minutes of movement. Most people assume blood sugar is only important if you have diabetes. That is not accurate. After 60, almost every body starts to become less responsive to insulin. Insulin is the hormone responsible for moving sugar from your blood into your cells, so it can be used as energy. You can think of insulin like a delivery system that opens the door to your cells. As we age, those cellular doors become less responsive. This condition is called insulin resistance. It develops quietly over time and becomes more common after 65. When this happens, sugar remains in your bloodstream longer than it should. That excess sugar increases inflammation, encourages fat storage around vital organs, and reduces the energy supply to your brain cells. A study from the Joslin Diabetes Center at Harvard found something very practical. Even a 1 5-minute walk after eating can reduce blood sugar spikes by up to 22%. That effect is significant because it is comparable to the effect of some mild glucose lowering medications, but without any side effects. There's another important process here called glycation. When excess sugar stays in the bloodstream, it begins attaching itself to proteins in your blood vessels. Over time, this causes those vessels to become stiff and less flexible, almost like turning soft rubber tubes into hardened plastic. This contributes to aging of the cardiovascular system. Walking helps prevent that process by clearing glucose from your blood before it can cause damage. This is why timing matters. A short walk after meals, especially after dinner, when blood sugar tends to be highest in older adults, can make a major difference. Even 10 minutes is enough to create a measurable effect. Adding hydration before your walk improves this process even further. A simple glass of water helps your kidneys and circulation remove glucose more efficiently during movement. This is a combination almost nobody talks about, but it is surprisingly effective. And now, before we move forward, here is something to think about. Number two on this list involves a process inside your cells that most people have never heard of, yet it becomes one of the most important drivers of aging after 70. We will get to that soon. But first, let's move to number five. Number five is where we need to challenge one of the most common fears people have about aging joints. And it starts with a simple misunderstanding. Many older adults stop walking because they believe it will damage their knees or make arthritis worse. On the surface, that idea feels logical. If your joints already hurt, it seems reasonable to assume that more movement would only increase the damage. But when we look at the actual science, the conclusion is completely different. Cartilage, the soft cushioning tissue inside your knees and hips, does not receive blood flow in the same way other tissues do. Instead, it depends on movement to absorb nutrients. Think of it like a sponge. It only gets fed when it is compressed and released through motion. Without movement, it slowly dries out and weakens over time. A major study from the University of California, San Francisco, followed more than 2,600 adults who had knee osteoarthritis. The researchers discovered something very important. Participants who continued walking regularly experienced significantly less cartilage loss over 4 years compared to those who remained inactive. This was true even after adjusting for weight and other health factors. In simple terms, walking helped preserve the joint structure instead of destroying it. There is also another major factor in aging that connects directly to joint health, and that is muscle loss. This condition is called sarcopenia. It refers to the gradual loss of muscle mass that naturally occurs with age. After 75, the average person can lose around 1.5% of muscle mass every year. The muscles most affected are often those that support your knees, hips, and lower back. When those supporting muscles weaken, your joints are forced to absorb more pressure than they were designed to handle. That is when pain often increases, not because of walking itself, but because the body has lost its natural support system. Walking directly targets this issue. Even at a slow or moderate pace, it activates the quadriceps, hamstrings, glutes, and calves. These muscles work together like a built in shock absorption system. Every step you take becomes more controlled and stable when these muscles are active. You can think of it like a suspension system in a car. Without it, every small bump becomes a hard impact. With it, movement becomes smooth and protected. For people dealing with joint discomfort, the environment you walk in matters. Softer surfaces like grass, dirt paths, or rubberized tracks reduce impact on the joints while still activating the muscles. Proper footwear is also important, especially shoes that provide cushioning and support rather than old, worn out pairs that no longer absorb shock effectively. There is another layer here that is often ignored. Nutrition timing can also influence joint comfort during movement. Foods rich in omega 3 fatty acids, such as fatty fish, walnuts, or flax seeds, help reduce inflammation in the body. When you walk after consuming these nutrients, your joints are operating in a less inflamed state, which improves comfort and mobility. A practical approach is to walk about 45 minutes after a meal that contains these healthy fats. This creates a natural synergy between movement and inflammation control that most people never take advantage of. Now we move to number four. And this is where things become even more surprising because we are entering the world of your immune system. As people age, the immune system naturally becomes less efficient. This process is known as immunosenescence. It simply means the immune system loses some of its strength over time. After the age of 70, the body produces fewer T cells, which are responsible for identifying and attacking threats inside the body. At the same time, natural killer cells, which help eliminate infected or abnormal cells, become slower and less active. This decline increases vulnerability to infections and chronic disease. At the same time, inflammation inside the body often becomes persistent. Instead of acting as a short term defense mechanism, inflammation remains active at low levels for long periods. This is known as inflammaging, and it is linked to conditions like heart disease, Alzheimer's, type 2 diabetes, and even some cancers. However, Research shows that walking can directly counteract these effects. A study from Appalachian State University found that individuals who walked briskly for 30 to 45 minutes, 5 days a week, experienced 43% fewer days of illness from respiratory infections compared to inactive adults of the same age group. Even more interesting, blood tests showed that walking increased the circulation of immune cells, especially natural killer cells, by up to 50% for several hours after exercise. In simple terms, movement helps wake up your immune system and sends it into active monitoring mode. The intensity of walking matters here. The ideal level is what researchers describe as a conversational pace. This means you are walking fast enough to feel slightly warmer and breathe a little deeper, but still able to talk comfortably. This balance is important because it activates immune response without creating excessive stress on the body. There is also a powerful environmental factor that can enhance this effect. Walking in natural sunlight, especially during the morning hours before 10 a.m., helps the body produce vitamin D. This vitamin plays a critical role in regulating immune function and reducing inflammation. When combined, sunlight exposure and regular walking create a strong, natural support system for immune health. Now, before we move into the top three effects, I want to briefly pause on something important. If this information is helping you understand your body in a new way, consider subscribing and supporting this channel. The goal here is to share clear, science based insights that are often overlooked in traditional conversations about aging. Now, let's continue. Next comes number three, and this is where walking begins to reshape something even more important than your immune system, your brain. Number three is where walking stops being just a physical activity and starts becoming something much more powerful for your identity, your memory, and the way you experience daily life. We are talking about the brain, not in a vague motivational sense, but in measurable structural changes that can actually be seen in scientific imaging. Let me introduce you to Dorothy, a 2-year-old woman from Savannah. She was not facing anything dramatic at first, just something that slowly became more noticeable over time. She would walk into rooms and forget why she entered. She would lose words mid sentence. Reading books no longer felt enjoyable, but instead like trying to push through mental fog. Her doctors ran standard tests, and everything came back normal for her age. That phrase alone is where many people stop looking for answers, as if decline is simply expected. Dorothy decided to change one small habit. She began walking every morning for about 25 minutes at a steady pace through her neighborhood. Nothing extreme, nothing complicated, just consistency. Within 8 weeks, something shifted. She reported sleeping better, thinking more clearly, and even finishing 2 books, something she had not done in years. What changed was not luck, it was biology. Research from the University of British Columbia, published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine, found that regular aerobic walking can increase the size of the hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for memory and learning, by about 2% in older adults. That may sound small at first, but the context changes everything. After the age of 60, the hippocampus naturally shrinks by about 1 to 2% every year. So walking does not just slow this decline, it can actually reverse part of it. This happens through a protein called BDNF, brain derived neurotrophic factor. You can think of it as a kind of fertilizer for brain cells. It supports the growth of new neural connections and helps existing neurons communicate more effectively. In some cases, it even supports the creation of new neurons, a process known as neurogenesis, something scientists once believed was impossible in adult brains. Walking also protects another important part of the brain, white matter. These are the communication pathways that connect different regions of the brain. As we age, these pathways can weaken, leading to slower thinking and reduced cognitive clarity. MRI studies from the University of Pittsburgh show that regular walking helps preserve this white matter and reduces the formation of small lesions linked to cognitive decline. The environment where you walk also plays a role. Research from the University of Michigan shows that walking in natural environments, such as parks or tree lined streets, leads to better cognitive restoration compared to walking in busy urban traffic areas. Nature provides variation, calm sensory input, and reduced mental overload, all of which help the brain recover and perform better. So the recommendation is not just to walk, but to choose environments that engage your senses in a calm and natural way. Now we move into number two, and this is where things become even more fundamental. We are no longer talking about just brain function or memory. We are talking about what happens inside every single cell of your body. Most people have heard of mitochondria in school as the powerhouse of the cell, but very few understand what that really means in the context of aging. Because after the age of 60, something very important begins to happen. Your mitochondria start to decline. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but gradually and silently. They become fewer in number, less efficient at producing energy, and more likely to generate harmful byproducts called reactive oxygen species. These are essentially waste molecules that can damage surrounding cells over time. This mitochondrial decline is now believed to be one of the core biological drivers behind many age related diseases, including heart disease, neurodegeneration, and metabolic disorders. But here's where walking becomes remarkable. Walking is one of the most effective natural triggers for something called mitochondrial biogenesis, which is the process of creating new mitochondria inside your cells. Research from the Mayo Clinic has shown that consistent aerobic movement, even at moderate intensity, can stimulate mitochondrial regeneration in older adults to levels similar to those seen in much younger individuals. This is not about slowing aging in theory, it is about restoring cellular energy production in practice. This process is controlled by a protein called PGC1 alpha. It activates when your body engages in sustained rhythmic movement, exactly the kind of movement walking provides. Unlike high intensity exercise, which can sometimes overwhelm aging cells, walking activates this pathway gently and safely. The key detail here is time. Most of this biological activation begins after about 15 minutes of continuous walking. The first part of your walk warms up your system, but the real cellular change happens when you maintain steady movement beyond that point. There is also a nutritional synergy that enhances this effect. Foods like blueberries, blackberries, and cherries contain compounds such as resveratrol and other polyphenols. Studies suggest these compounds can further activate the same mitochondrial pathways triggered by walking, amplifying the effect. So, something as simple as a small serving of berries before a morning walk can support deeper cellular energy production. Now, before we reach the final and most important effect, there is one more level to this story. We have talked about the brain, the immune system, joints, and cellular energy. But the final piece connects directly to your arteries, your heart, and your long term independence. And that is where everything comes together. Now we arrive at number one, the most important effect walking has on your body, and the one that may ultimately decide whether you maintain independence as you age or gradually lose it. This is about your vascular system, specifically the endothelium, the thin inner lining of your arteries that controls how blood flows through your entire body. To understand why this matters, let's look at Harold, a 7-8 year old man from Portland. By his early 70s, Harold had already undergone stent placement in his coronary arteries. After that, he was advised to take it easy, which he interpreted as slowing down almost everything in his life. He walked less, avoided effort, used elevators instead of stairs, and gradually became more fatigued and isolated. Eventually, he was referred to a cardiac rehabilitation program built around one simple intervention: daily walking. At first, it seemed too simple to make a difference. But after 18 months, the results were measurable and undeniable. His resting blood pressure dropped from 148 over 92 to 122 over 78 without any medication changes. His 6 minute walk test, a standard measure of cardiovascular fitness, improved by 34%. But what mattered most to him was not the numbers, it was how he felt. He described it as getting 7 years of life back. What changed inside Harold's body was happening at the level of his arteries. The endothelium is not just a passive lining inside blood vessels. It is an active organ that releases nitric oxide, a molecule that signals blood vessels to relax and expand, improving circulation. As we age, endothelial cells naturally produce less nitric oxide. This leads to stiffer arteries, higher blood pressure, and increased strain on the heart. Over time, this reduced flexibility contributes to plaque buildup, inflammation, and higher risk of heart attack or stroke. However, research shows that walking directly reverses part of this process. A study from the University of Colorado found that postmenopausal women who walked 30 minutes daily for 3 months improved their flow mediated dilation by 68%. This is a key measurement of how well arteries can expand in response to increased blood flow. In simple terms, their arteries became more responsive and healthier. Another large study from Japan followed nearly 5,000 adults over 70 and found that daily walkers had a 35% lower risk of experiencing a first cardiovascular event compared to sedentary individuals, even after accounting for cholesterol levels, smoking history, and medication use. The mechanism behind this improvement is something called shear stress. When you walk, your muscles increase blood flow through the arteries. This creates a gentle force on the endothelial lining. That force signals the cells to produce more nitric oxide and maintain healthier function. In practical terms, your arteries respond to walking by becoming more flexible, more responsive, and more efficient. It is a continuous repair process that happens with every step. Timing also plays a role. Morning walks appear to have a stronger effect on arterial flexibility, likely because blood vessels are naturally stiffer after sleep and cortisol levels are higher. Studies show that morning walking can reduce arterial stiffness more effectively than evening walking in older adults. Nutrition can further enhance this effect. Foods high in dietary nitrates, such as spinach, arugula, and beetroot, help increase nitric oxide availability in the body. When consumed a few hours before walking, these nutrients combine with the mechanical effects of movement to amplify vascular benefits. This means that something as simple as a glass of beet juice or a handful of leafy greens before a morning walk can significantly improve endothelial function. In some studies, this combination has nearly doubled the effect of walking alone on vascular health. When you combine all of this, the conclusion becomes very clear. Walking is not just physical activity, it is a full body biological signal. It tells your heart to stay strong, your arteries to stay flexible, your brain to stay active, your immune system to stay alert, your joints to stay nourished, and your cells to keep producing energy efficiently. And perhaps most importantly, it tells your body that you are still engaged with life. So let's bring everything together. You are not too old to benefit from this. Your body does not suddenly stop responding at 60 or 70 or 80. It continues to adapt, rebuild, and improve based on the signals you give it. Walking is one of the clearest and most powerful signals you can send. The tragedy is not aging itself. The tragedy is believing that decline is unavoidable when in reality, so much of it can be influenced by something as simple and consistent as daily movement. Independence in later years is not random. It is built step by step, literally. If you walk regularly, you are not just exercising, you are actively shaping your future health, your mobility, and your ability to live life on your own terms. And if this message resonated with you, consider subscribing and sharing it with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes the simplest habits are the ones that quietly change everything. Now, I want to leave you with one final question, and I genuinely read every comment. What is one place you would love to walk again, or a place that still brings you peace when you think about it? Because sometimes healing does not start with medicine, it starts with remembering where you want to go next.